Hey yo YouTube, I am here to continue talking about the Band of Titans campaign. In my last video, I left off where Johann just got a mission from the Dwarven Mountains to explore further ruins they found in the new kingdom of Dalvar. So according to my old notes, apparently in the entranceway was vampire goblins. I really don't remember this at all. After we enter the entranceway, we find a trail and apparently end up finding another group of goblins. Um, and around this time, Johann starts hearing voices. And at some point, they find out that it might have something to do with Wendigo. So in our next session, we find our way into the Dwarven ruins. I believe my notes are somewhat inaccurate here. I know we start exploring like different sections of the kingdom place. Like one, I know one is like a living area, another one is a hall, and then like the bottom is a forge. And like I know we find a brewery and where they're making like some kind of mushroom beer, and Johann ends up taking a lot of it and taking some of the mushrooms, taking the equipment, and like maybe even if he finds a recipe, because he's been putting points in the brewery on skill. And then I want to say behind that, see, this is the part I think I left out where there's like three different sections, and if I remember right, there are like three different like small kingdoms or temples that have to do with different races. And then behind that is the army of statues. In my notes, all I have is the army of statues. And at some point, I know we see like a room where it says like the hidden god or something about the hidden god, um, which is something this party encounters a lot. We hear that term everywhere we go. Um, I remember there being like a teleporter, or there was something in the room, and we were gonna do something. Our uh, Seville's character or Craven's character are either Seville, because at some point Craven's player takes over Seville because they quit playing. But they're about to do something magical, and then we end up getting distracted. Like we go farther down, and one of the characters sees like a figure like disguised as a rock, and when we try to approach it, it runs off, and we chase after it. But get back a little bit more to the statue army. We see a statue army of almost every race, including like Wemmicks, including goblinoids. Uh, we end up like looting a bunch of the equipment on them, and then also we come across a room full of equipment. Uh, at one point, Johann even like one of the goblet ones that are kind of smaller. He picks up the whole statue and puts it in his bag. Uh, we even end up taking two dwarf statues, which ends up coming into play later. Uh, but like I said, we see this figure, we start chasing it. Eventually, we chase it to another one of its kind and a dark elf. And there's some kind of hairy creatures. Uh, Being a dark elf and Johann, because uh, Johann's kind of racist against dark elves, Grey Dwarves, and Goblinoids. To a point, everyone is with Goblinoids. But, so, like, when he sees a dark elf, he really reacts. To a point, a lot of people are, in the D&D world, racist to dark elves. Like, he even, like, insults them. He has his bow out. Craven ends up talking him down, and I think it's funny because later on, like the player was like, "Yeah, I smoothed everything out. Johann was going to attack him and stuff like that." And I'm thinking, as a player, no, I wasn't going to attack them at all. It's just that that's how Johann would have reacted. Uh, and of course, he would have had been on like guard and stuff. We mentioned that Johann's getting affected by the Wendigo, and they tell us that if we meet with their shaman, he might be able to help us. And again, something from memory that wasn't on my notes, like uh, at the start of the next session, because Earth player wasn't there. So it takes us like a few hours to travel with this Wendigo to get with the shaman. When we start getting near their territory, like we see like one or two of them like hiding, watching us, and out of nowhere, just rushes them. Just like sprints up, like jumps in front of it, and is like, "What are you doing?" I point out he wasn't there the session before because I don't think he knew that the thing wouldn't be able to understand him. That it didn't speak common. So I think he imagined him running up saying like, "What are you doing?" and it actually uh, commenting back, but instead it got aggressive and like I said, if I remember it, it's two of them. And they surround him, and the player like even says at one point like, if they want to go, then let's go. Uh, and like Johan talks them down. Johan's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm making sure they ain't doing sneaky stuff." I'm like, we're entering their territory. Like, of course they're watching us, making sure we're not doing sneaky stuff. Uh, Eventually he gets talked down. But it's one of the first time does something like this, and it becomes an ongoing thing where he'll just react and he'll completely railroad what's going on, or he could potentially. Um, and almost every time that's what it is. Like he gets like right there, but he doesn't do it. Like if he would attack these, we wouldn't be able to talk to the shaman, and whatever's going on with this Wendigo, Johan wouldn't have got help for. Like almost every time he goes to sleep, he has a nightmare. When he wakes up, he has to do a roll, and if he fails, he loses. I want to say his constitution, or it might have even been one of the intelligent ones, like that or wisdom. Luckily, one of the characters I haven't talked about yet is Father Keenan. Um, Father Keenan apparently was played by a player before I started playing. Uh, he's from the Forgotten Realms world. The character took a or the character all of his spells were all healing, like nothing was attack. And after the player left, the DM took over it and made the character take a vow of silence. So with this party, we just have this OP healer all the time, and like I said, every time Johan fails one of these rolls, this healer just does a restoration spell or whatever it is, so he's able to get it back. Without him, Johan might have been screwed because I know I fell a couple of them, and this goes on for a couple days. So we meet up with the Wendigo Shaman, and he gives us like a lore dump that they used to live on the surface and they protect like this sphere or this teleporter or a vortex. It's something like that. Uh, and the ground sunk in, and cool. If I remember right, it's just coincidence that they're by this ruined city with these statues. But the thing they protect is where the Wendigo came out of, and I guess it shows up like every 100 years or so. Uh, if I remember right, it tells us stuff like the Wendigo prefers pacifists. Like the goblins down here worship it and stuff, but that's just because like goblins worship strong deities or something that's stronger than them. It's not uncommon. Uh, it will take the goblins under control or do the thing to the goblins, but it doesn't really like to because they are not pacifists, and they will definitely kill or eat each other because that's what it turns the person into. Because like Johan starts getting flavor for dwarven meat. Because Morgana, he starts like eyeing her and stuff. Like it's supposed to turn them into cannibal. I know at one point we break down why it's Johan. Besides that he's a pacifist, it was like, well, There isn't no other dragon disciples down here. There isn't any gray elves down here. Is like has like a dead body, so it's not going to be him. But I know we end up having to travel to where the Wendigo came from. And I know when we get there, like we end up having to do some rolls because it starts pulling us in. Uh, and like because we start walking, it starts making us walk forward. And if we don't succeed the roll, I think we have to succeed like 3 rolls if I remember right. Uh, I remember I almost set Basker in on purpose because he's an astral being and technically he can't die, but I didn't risk it. And then I want to say we moved past that, and then we ended up getting into a battle with a bunch of littler Wendigos and one big one. Um, I remember the Wendigos like had no legs, and they like if I remember right, they just like hovered. Um, and like I said, at the end we fought the big one was the one that was controlling them. Those are the only real things I remember significant of the fight. And then I guess the next session before we ended up heading home, another goblin troop ended up showing up, and when we went to engage them, another Wendigo showed up in that battle, and we fought one off too before we went home. And then in our next session, um, we end up heading back to the manor for a bit, and then just a rest, and then we continue and go to the vortex like we planned. So after we enter it, I guess we enter like a Wizard of Oz world. Like we see a yellow brick road, and we end up following it. Uh, this somewhat got talked about in the other campaign. Um, we follow the road. We come to the Emerald City, and inside we end up fighting these uh, they were the lollipop kids, and but they look just like the little kid that we saw in the campaign, the session that I missed. Whenever we were in the world where we met Morgana, the futuristic Japanese world, and we met the refugees. One of the people there was a mage, and I remember Craven was sure that the mage was up to something, was no good, but whenever we see the wizard here, it looks like a younger version of him. Uh, I don't remember too much of fighting, with the exception of because Johann, like I said, Johann doesn't kill a goodly creature, so he's not sure what these are. So he doesn't kill the one that he fights, and I want to say this is the first time does it, where has a leap attack where he runs and he jumps and it does like an AOE, and multiple times he one shots a boss who's like a caster, and I want to say this is the first time he does it, where he just runs over and he just nails the Oz, and then after he kills him, the world starts falling apart, and Johann grabs the lollipop kid that he knocked out, and I guess Craven ends up grabbing the dead body of the Wizard of Oz. So in our next session, we continue on in the vortex, and we cross a group of these like ancient dwarves and humans that are trapped in this world. And they tell us a story about some group that comes and takes like 30 or half of their kids every 30 years. I guess between 13 and it says question mark, so I guess I didn't hear them. After about 70 years, they were back, not being as many people as there used to be. It will kill some of them off to do so. I don't know what that last part means. And I know amongst them is a group called the Manny. Um, I can't remember much about this world because I remember it's something about like the groups like slowly become closer. Like at one point, the Manny and the ancient dwarves and I guess regular humans used to live far away, but it slowly came together, and this world's collapsing, and they have to convince the ancient dwarves and the Manny to do some ritual so we could go back home. So the next session, when we're in the middle of the ritual, like three cars pull up. If I remember right, one's a hearse, one's a cop car, and like one's like an old time car, if I remember right. And there ends up being these like either they come out of it or they just walk up and join. But there ends up being these little dwarf hooded holding are fighting with the balls and phantasm. Like if whenever they hit us, they like keep digging in, doing more damage. Um, and then outside the cop cars comes out maniac cops. Uh, either either at the beginning or I want to say near the end, the tall man ends up coming out from the movie Phantasm, and we end up fighting them off or him off. After we kill them off, and we search the bodies, like we ended up taking some of the balls and like we notice that there's tattoos on their chest. Uh, uh, there's some kind of clones. They end up being like they're the same thing as what the lollipop is. Like it says Gulag on them, and it says the type and stuff like that. From the original or the other campaign, we know a little bit more about Gulag. So you want to know about that? Watch those videos. They do tell us that before we go back home. Uh, during these sessions, one of the players couldn't come, or two of the players couldn't come. So like we kind of lost them in the waves or in the dream world, and we know they're going to be back next session. So so they tell us that we have to go do like open up some portals or do some travel walking to get to them because we know that the players are going to be here next session. And I think I'm going to wrap up there. You want to know what happens, watch the next video in this series. You want to get an idea of the full story, watch all my videos, and check you later.